Hello everyone, welcome back to online lecture series on heat transfer. Today we are going to begin a new chapter, that is heat exchanger part 1. In our previous lecture we have finished radiation part 2. So first we will quickly revise our previous topic and then we will begin our new chapter. So in our previous lecture we started with heat exchange between non-black bodies and we began with infinite parallel planes. So here we took two non-black surfaces having a fixed value of emissivity and absorptivity, and here we calculated the net heat exchange between two parallel planes, and we also defined the heat interchange factor given by F12. The next case was infinite long concentric cylinders. So we followed the same process and we obtained the net value of heat exchange, as well as we defined here the interchange factor. I gave you two topics for self-study, that is small gray bodies and small body in a large enclosure, and I hope that you have completed this part by yourself. Our next theory was the electrical network approach for radiation heat exchange. We defined two terms, radiosity and irradiation. Here radiosity is defined as the total radiant energy leaving a surface per unit time per unit surface area, and it comprises of two things. First is original emittance from the surface, that is this curvy arrow, and plus the reflected portion of any radiation incident upon it, that is this portion. The irradiation G denotes the total radiant energy incident upon the surface per unit time per unit area. Some of it may be reflected to become a part of radiosity of the surface, that is quite evident from this figure. And here we had this electrical analogy where this value, that is 1 minus epsilon divided by A epsilon, represents the surface resistance to the radiation heat transfer. We took another case here in which the surface resistances of two radiating bodies and surface resistance between them has been considered. So there will be a summation of these three resistances, and with this we defined the gray body factor. The next and last theory of radiation chapter was radiation shields. So it is used to reduce overall heat transfer between two radiating surfaces. They are of very low absorptivity and high reflectivity. And we took two different cases. First is in which there is no radiation shield, and second case is with radiation shield. So we compared and we obtained here That comparison of two expressions shows that the heat flow ratio with radiation shield becomes just half of what it would have been without the radiation shield. So this was the end of radiation part 2 and completion of the whole radiation chapter. So now we will close this chapter and begin our new chapter, that is heat exchanger. This chapter will be divided into 3 small parts, that is 3 different videos for the whole chapter. First, the definition of heat exchanger. It is a process equipment designed for effective transfer of heat energy between two fluids, a hot fluid and a coolant. So essentially, heat exchanger will contain two fluids, hot fluid and second it will be coolant, or we can also say it as a cold fluid. Few examples of heat exchangers are, first is boiler, that is evaporator, superheaters and condensers of steam power plant. So these are the essential components of power plant. That's why the heat exchanger is a very important concept that can be used in power plants. Second is automobile radiators and oil coolers of the heat engine. Third is evaporator of ice plant and milk chiller of pasteurizing plant. So this will be part of our refrigeration and air conditioning. There also heat exchangers are used. Next is condenser and evaporators of refrigeration units. So very similar to our third point. Fifth is water and air heaters or coolers. Here, the heat transferred in heat exchanger may be in the form of latent heat or sensible heat. So we will see this portion in our upcoming topics, where we will see that the heat exchange may be in form of latent heat or sensible heat. Now we will be discussing about classification of heat exchangers. This is going to be a very important topic. Here the classification is done in the following ways. First is operating principle. Second way of classification is arrangement of flow path. And the third way to classify heat exchanger is design and certain constructional features. We will see all classifications in detail now. First is nature of heat exchange process. Based upon the nature of heat exchange process, the heat exchangers are classified into three different categories. First is direct contact, second is regenerators, and third is recuperators. We will see them one by one. First is direct contact or open heat exchangers, and it can be seen in this figure also. So as I was mentioning you that there are two kinds of fluids present here. First is hot fluid, that is in this figure is steam, and it is entering as a steam and exiting as non-condensable bleed. So here the cold fluid is this, that is cold water, and at the exit it is becoming a warm water. The energy transfer between hot fluid and cold fluid is brought about by their complete physical mixing. So as you can see here, there is a complete physical mixing happening. There is simultaneous transfer of heat and mass, and examples are water cooling towers and jet condensers in steam power plant. So there is a complete mixing of hot fluid and cold fluid here. Second case is regenerators, that is written over here. The hot fluid is passed through a certain medium called matrix. So here, this is important part. The heat is transferred to this solid matrix and it accumulates there. So this is something like a storage. So matrix is some form of storage where the hot fluid is giving its energy, and this operation is being called as heating period. Now the heat that is stored in this matrix is subsequently transferred to the cold fluid by allowing it to pass over the heated matrix. So this is the matrix which is being used in this way, one by one, that first it is being heated with hot fluid, the heat is being stored in the matrix, and whenever it is required, the heat is released to the cold fluid. The regenerators are used in engines and gas turbines. The operation of regenerator is intermittent. That is, first it is being heated, then it is cooled. So the matrix alternatively stores heat extracted from the hot fluid and then delivers it to a cold fluid. The effectiveness of regenerator depends upon the heat capacity of the regenerating material and the rate of absorption and release of the heat. Now the third category is recuperator. In recuperator, this is the figure of recuperator. There is some sort of a dividing wall, and one fluid is passing here, fluid A, which is above this wall, and fluid B is passing below this wall. The fluid flow simultaneously on either side of the separating wall as shown in this figure. So here the heat transfer occurs between the fluid streams without any form of mixing or physical contact with each other. So this is completely non-contact type of heat exchange process, and it is called recuperator. The wall provides an element of thermal resistance between the fluids, and heat transfer consists of three things. First is convection between hot fluid and the wall. So let us presume here that this is our hot fluid, and this is our cold fluid. Okay. See, throughout this chapter I will try to indicate hot with red color and cold with sky blue color. So here first it will be, this portion is between the hot fluid and the wall, that is in between this region. Then conduction through wall, that is through this wall, that will be a conduction one. So this was our first way. This is the second way the heat exchange is happening, and third is the convection between wall and cold fluid, that is over here. This will be helpful in our performance analysis also. So this is the third way the heat exchange is happening. Such heat exchangers are used when two fluids cannot be allowed to mix, that is when their mixing is undesirable. So here you can clearly see that mixing is not happening. Majority of the industrial applications have heat exchangers of recuperator types. Notable examples are boiler, superheater, condensers, economizers, and the air preheaters in the steam power plants. Second is automobile radiator. Third is condensers and evaporators in refrigeration units. Oil heaters for an aeroplane. Heat exchanger inside a gas furnace. Now second way to classify heat exchangers is relative direction of motion of fluid. So the heat exchangers are classified into three categories here. First is parallel flow heat exchanger. Second is counter flow heat exchanger. And third is cross flow heat exchanger. As you can see our first figure, in which it is the example of parallel flow heat exchanger, that is called as concurrent or parallel flow arrangement. The fluids enter the unit from the same side. So you can see the direction of fluid A and fluid B is same, that is they are coming from left hand side and they are going into right hand side. So they enter the unit from the same side, flow in the same direction, and subsequently they leave from the same side. Obviously the flow of fluid is unidirectional and parallel to each other. Now second case here is completely opposite of our first case, and in this case both fluids are moving in opposite direction. In the counter current or counter flow arrangement, the fluids enter the unit from opposite ends, travel in the opposite direction, and subsequently leave from the opposite ends. So you can see that fluid A is coming from right and going into left, and fluid B is coming from left and going to right direction. So it is example of counter flow arrangement. The flow of fluid here is opposite in direction to each other. For a given surface area, the counter flow arrangement gives the maximum heat transfer rate and is naturally preferred for heating and cooling of fluid. So the meaning is that we will be preferring counter flow heat exchanger for maximum heat transfer rate. Now our next arrangement is cross flow arrangement. Here the two fluids, hot and cold, are directed at right angles to each other. First we will focus on figure A. Fluid A flows inside separate tubes, that is, this horizontal, the fluid A is passing through these horizontal tubes. And it is leaving through these pipes only. So they are having prescribed path to flow through the heat exchanger. And here its different streams do not mix because they are having their own pipelines to pass through. Now regarding fluid B, fluid B flows over the tube banks and gets perfectly mixed. So fluid B is coming from the top and leaving at the bottom with mixing. So this is the way they are going. And they are allowed to mix with each other. So fluid B gets unmixed. Fluid B get mixed here. In this way. So it is allowed for mixing of the fluids. Now if we see our figure B, each of the fluid stays in the prescribed paths, and here they are not allowed to mix as they flow with each other. So here both fluid A and fluid B are given their predefined paths so that they do not get mixed with each other. So through horizontal pipes the fluid A is passing and fluid B is also given a restricted path so that it doesn't get, its streams doesn't mixed. When the mixing occurs, that is like the case of stream B here, the temperature variations are primarily in the flow directions. When they are unmixed, that is in the case of fluid A here or fluid B in the second figure, there is a temperature gradient along the stream as well as in the direction perpendicular to it. Apparently, the temperatures of the fluids leaving the unit are not uniform for unmixed streams. Now the application of cross-flow heat exchangers. These are commonly used in air or gas heating and cooling applications, that is in automobile radiators and the cooling unit of air conditioning unit. Now the third classification is mechanical design of heat exchanger surface. First is concentric tubes. So here two concentric pipes are used, each carrying one of the fluids. The direction of flow may correspond to unidirectional or counter flow arrangement. So the example of concentric tube here is available here in these two figures are examples of concentric tube heat exchangers because they are concentric with each other. Now we shall see the another way to classify this is shell and tube heat exchanger and multiple shell and tube passes. First we will see the shell and tube heat exchanger, which is the most common type of heat exchanger. Here one of the fluid is carried through bundle of tubes enclosed by a shell. So here in this case this is the pipe. Through which one fluid is passing, that is fluid A. The other fluid is forced to pass through the shell and flows over outside surfaces of the tube. So the second case is this, that let us say that fluid B is entering here and it is passing like this around the tubes. The direction of flow for either or both fluids may change during its passage through the heat exchanger. So here if you see, it is been written that there are two tube passes and one shell pass. So why there are two tube passes? Because the fluid is covering this shell distance twice, because first from left to right and then from right to left. That's why these are called two tube passes and one shell pass. Now second is multiple shell and tube passes. The two fluids flow over the heat exchanger only once. one or both fluids may transverse or traverse the exchanger more than once. So here if you see, it has been written that 4 tube passes and 2 shell passes. So what is the meaning of this? There is one thing that I am going to do here. For convenience, I am modifying our sign convection here. The hot fluid will be shown as red and cold fluid will be shown with green. So this will be our better representation. Okay. So let's assume that the fluid B is hot here. So it has been written here that 4 tube passes are there. So it will be like this. This is one pass completed for tube. This is the second pass of tube. Then we have third pass here. And then there is a fourth pass of tube. So in this way, the hot fluid is passing. It may not be necessarily hot fluid, but for a while I have taken this to be hot fluid that is passing through these tubes. Now regarding the cold fluid, which is shown to have 2 shell passes. So let's begin from here. So why there are 2 shell passes? Because here this is the first shell pass. And now it will enter into second shell pass, that is over at the bottom portion. Here, by suitable header design, the fluid within the tubes can be made to traverse back and forth from one end to the another end of the shell. Here, an exchanger, that is an heat exchanger having N shell pass and M tube passes, is designated as NM heat exchanger. So here we are having, and this will be, okay, let me write down over here, it will not be visible there. Here we will have 4-2 heat exchanger. Sometimes I will refer heat exchanger as HS. Okay. Now the physical state of a heat exchanging fluids. First we will discuss about condenser. So hot fluid, that is condensing steam, remains at the constant temperature all along its passage through the heat exchanger, while the temperature of other fluid gradually increases from inlet to outlet. The hot fluid loses only a part of it. So here, if you see again, in condenser, the steam will remain at constant temperature, it will lose only its latent heat, while the other fluid, that is cooling water, will have increase of temperature. To explain this part, here this is the condenser portion. So for convenience, let me copy that text over here. So here let's understand this with this figure, that here the hot fluid remains at constant temperature all along its passage through the heat exchanger. As you can see here, we will discuss these graphs again in our next lecture, but to understand the condenser portion, that here the temperature of condensing steam remains constant because here this is only losing its heat, and whilst the temperature of other fluid, that is coolant water, gradually increases from inlet to outlet. That is, you can see here that the temperature of cooling water keeps on increasing like this. Okay, now if we see the evaporator portion, during the heat exchange of evaporation of water into steam, the cold fluid, that is boiling water, evaporates at constant temperature. So this is the evaporating water. That is, the phase change is happening here, so temperature doesn't change and only latent heat is used. While the temperature of hot gases continuously decreases from inlet to outlet. So here this is the decrease in temperature of hot gases from inlet to outlet. So here we are having conversion of vapor into liquid, and here we are having conversion of liquid into vapor. Okay, so let's get back into our main theory there. So I have also explained this portion of evaporator with that figure, that during the evaporation of water into steam, the cold fluid, that is boiling water, evaporates at constant temperature, whilst the temperature of hot gases continuously decreases from inlet to outlet. We will still repeat this portion in our next lecture because it will be utilized in LMTD also. That is the next topic of our next lecture. So here the heat exchanger can be further classified on the basis of following design parameters. First is temperature and pressure levels of fluid. Second is corrosiveness, toxicity and scale forming tendency of fluids. Third is economic considerations such as cost. Ease of manufacture, necessary space and required life, etc. So this is the way the heat exchanger can be further classified based on the design parameters. Now our next theory, which is very important, is performance analysis. So figure represents the block diagram for heat exchanger. So here there are two fluids as usual. First is hot fluid, which is entering. It is having mass of mH and specific heat as Ch, and temperature at the entry is Th, and it is exiting with temperature Th2. The cold fluid is having the temperature at inlet as Tc1 and temperature at outlet as Tc2. The cold fluid is having the mass flow rate mc and specific heat as Cc. Here another thing which we have defined is temperature theta, which is not of a particular fluid, but it is the temperature difference of two fluids between at the entry, and here theta 2 is the temperature difference between two fluids at the exit of heat exchanger. And regarding this formula, that is UA theta m, we will discuss in this theory now. So first is mass flow rate is indicated in kg per second. Second will be the specific heat, which will be considered in joule per kg degree. the fluid temperature will be T, that will be in degrees Celsius. Delta T will be the temperature drop or rise of a fluid across the heat exchanger. So in this case, delta T H will be equal to TH1 minus TH2, and then delta TC will be equal to TC2 minus TC1. Why? Because the temperature of cold fluid at exit will be more than the temperature at the entry. Here the subscripts H and C designate the hot and cold fluids respectively. Subscripts 1 and 2 correspond to the inlet and outlet condition of the fluid. Now the hot fluid here gives up the heat QH, which is given by mc delta T. If you recall, our standard formula is Q is equal to mc delta T, and the same formula is being applied over here, that mh, ch and th1 minus th2, that is, we have utilized this temperature difference. Then the coolant picks up the heat, which is given by QC, that is mc cc tc2 minus tc1. So the structure of heat exchanger transfers the heat from hot fluid to coolant. So this is the Q heat exchange, that is Q exchanger is equal to U A theta M, where here U is called as overall heat transfer coefficient between two fluids. A is the effective heat transfer, it should be area over here. Heat transfer area, theta m is the appropriate mean temperature difference across the heat exchanger structure. So regarding this theta m, we will have a separate lecture on this, that is here written as appropriate mean temperature difference, and later on we will understand that it is logarithmic mean temperature difference, shortly known as LMTD. From the energy balance, the heat given up by the hot fluid is picked up by the coolant on being transferred through the heat exchanger. So QH is equal to QC is equal to Q exchanger. And now we will discuss about the one term that we saw in previous slide, that is U. A heat exchanger is essentially a device in which energy is transferred from one fluid to another across a good conducting solid wall. So the rate of heat transfer between two fluids is given by this formula. If you recall, this is the formula that we have studied in conduction, that is Q is equal to delta T upon sigma RT, and Q is equal to UA delta T, where U was overall heat transfer coefficient. So here we can combine these two equations, and apparently the overall heat transfer coefficient of heat transfer U is defined as in terms of total thermal resistance. So here we can eliminate this two Q. So UA is equal to 1 upon sigma RT. How? Because here if we see from the first equation, Q upon delta T is equal to 1 upon sigma RT, and Q upon delta T in the second equation is, you can consider this to be a small t, so it will be a convenient one, small t, okay, is equal to 1 upon UA. So when we compare these two, both are equal now. So 1 upon UA is equal to, sorry, here it should be in the numerator only. It is equal to UA. So we can easily combine them. So let me erase that portion. So here when the two fluids of heat exchanger are separated by a plane wall, here we have a plane wall of thickness delta, and the temperature of one fluid is TA, as can be seen here, and temperature of another fluid is TB. We have already seen this figure in our conduction chapter. So there will be a thin film on this side which is having a heat transfer coefficient HI, and here also at the outer side we will have heat transfer coefficient HO, and there is a delta thickness of this wall. At the left hand side of the wall we are having temperature T1, and on the right hand side of the wall we are having temperature of T2. The thickness is delta, and we have drawn an electrical circuit for the same, which is already known to you. So it consists of three resistance. First is the convection resistance due to the fluid film at the inside surface, that is 1 upon AIHI. Second is wall conduction resistance, that is delta upon Ka, that is over here. This is the second resistance, this is the first resistance, and third resistance is the convection resistance due to the fluid film at the outside surface, that is 1 divided by AOHO. So here it should be HI here, and here it should be AO. So we can write down in this way. UA, as we recall, the value of U was equal to 1 divided by sigma RT. So there is a summation of this thermal resistances, and for constant cross sectional area normal to the heat flow, we can eliminate this A So finally there should not be A present over here, only U will be there. So finally we are getting the value of overall heat transfer coefficient with plane wall. Now second case here is for the cylindrical separating wall. In this case, the cross sectional area of heat flow path is not constant but varies with the radius. As you can see, when we have seen that for cylindrical and spherical surfaces, the area keeps on changing with radius. Now it becomes necessary to specify the area upon which the overall heat transfer coefficient is based on. So here we have two different values of U, that is, one will be for based on the inner area and second will be based on the outer area. So if we define it based on the inner area, so let's first focus on this figure. Even though we have already seen this, it will be a form of revision for you, that here the inner radius is Ri, outer radius is Ro, the temperature of inner fluid is Ta, temperature of outer fluid is Tb. There are two convection films which are created. One is having inner heat transfer coefficient Hi and second is having outer heat transfer coefficient HO. The temperature at the inner wall surface is T1 and outer wall surface is T2. And here we are having three different resistance. First is the convection resistance due to the inner film. Second is the cylindrical wall thermal resistance, that is 1 upon 2 pi KL ln Ro upon Ri, and third is the convection resistance due to the outer film, that is 1 upon HO AO. So again, this is UI AI is equal to 1 upon summation of this thermal resistances, and since we can say that AI is equal to 2 pi RIL and AO is equal to 2 pi ROL. So when we put these values here, then our equation will get reduced in this way. You can do it by yourself. Once you put the value of AI and AO in this equation, 2 pi and L will get eliminated and the remaining things will be like this. Now suppose the resistance due to the material is neglected, that is, let me highlight this, that suppose we are neglecting this portion. Then that is over here also, that is the resistance due to material. Then our equation reduces to this. And furthermore, suppose if the wall thickness is small, that is, in case of wall thickness being small, Ri can be approximately written as Ro. So even these two will get eliminated. So we will have this Ui is equal to 1 upon Hi plus 1 upon Ho. So ultimately it gets reduced to this very simple equation here. Now suppose we need to write down the corresponding equations based on the outer surface. Then UO will be like this. Second, here we will be again neglecting this. There is a correction here. And here also we have neglected the resistance due to the material, that is over here. then we will be again considering that wall thickness is very less, so RO will be approximately Ri. So finally we are getting the same equation as our previous slide. Now the above equations are essentially valid only for clean and uncorroded surface. However, during the normal operation, the tube surfaces gets covered by deposit of ash, soot, dirt and scale. So this is the reality for which the thermal resistance will increase here. Thermal resistance will increase and the performance of heat exchanger will reduce because of this. So this phenomena of rust formation and deposition of fluid impurities is called as fouling. This surface deposits increases the thermal resistance with corresponding drop in the performance of the heat exchanger. Since the thickness of thermal conductivity of the scale deposits are difficult to ascertain, the effect of scale on the heat flow is considered by specifying an equivalent scale heat transfer coefficient Hs. So this is important part. We need to define equivalent scale heat transfer coefficient. So here, let us say that HSI and HSO denote the heat transfer coefficient for the scales formed on the inner and outer surfaces respectively. So deposits will be on the both sides, that is inner and outer. Then the thermal resistance due to scale formation on inner surface will be this, that is RSI is equal to 1 divided by AI HSI, and thermal resistance due to scale formation on outside surface will be given in this way, RSO is equal to 1 divided by AOHSO. Both are similar kind of formulas. Now with inclusion of these resistances at inner and outer surfaces, we can write down the overall heat transfer coefficient formula in this way. So here, which are two additional things that we have done? So first, we have added this, that is 1 divided by AISHSI and 1 divided by AOHSO. These two things are being added over here because of the scale heat transfer coefficient. So for inner surface, what we can do is we can write down the formula in this way, UI is equal to 1 divided by this denominator, and similarly for outer surface we can write down in this way, that is UO will be based on the outer surface area. Now the fouling factors are determined experimentally by testing the heat exchanger in both clean and dirty conditions. And it is given by this formula, that fouling factor RF is equal to 1 over U dirty minus 1 over U clean. And this will be our next theory, where I need to delete this text. Our next topic will be logarithmic mean temperature difference, and this will be discussed in our next lecture. So in today's lecture we have done classification of heat exchanger in 3 different ways. We studied about condenser and evaporator, the performance analysis, value of overall heat transfer coefficient, and fouling factor. This is end of today's lecture, and we will continue this chapter in our next lecture. Thank you for watching this video.